Good afternoon and welcome to the Sam Lacrosse Show. Happy Monday. Our last decade of American life has been defined by virality, from everyone to the two-time president of the United States to the transgender makeup influencer that interviewed the one-time president of the United States. Status has morphed into more ways over the past 10 years than it has in the past 1,000. We're a culture and a nation that demands a certain level of wow from the people that we listen to. If we don't get that, we largely tune out, and tune out very quickly. And this has its drawbacks as well as its perks, obviously. One of the drawbacks of virality, is that oftentimes it's not real. It's fake, manufactured, completely and totally meaningless. With the rise of low-cost creator tools like CapCut and Captions, anyone can make a reel as good as Stephen Bartlett or Alex Hormozi given enough time and training. Whether they give the value that those two give is another thing entirely. Yet one of the perks of virality is that it allows people to rise that otherwise never would have. One of the great things that social media has allowed us to do is give a voice to the people who are formerly never allowed to have one. The creation of a new avenue for voices of purpose to rise from nothing has given us a massive ecosystem of choice from whom we consume our information. It has utterly destroyed the validity of our corrupt gatekeeper class, which is why they're also threatened by its emergence. However, we must be careful with completely throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Should our gatekeeper class be ripped out and replaced with something better? Absolutely. They weren't doing their job, so they need to be removed. This has been an overwhelmingly good thing for the most part. Corrupt information really isn't information at all. It's simply a tool of the elite, of the powerful, to control the masses, to prevent them from seeing their corruption, their malfeasance, their unimpressiveness. But yet, if you do not have something viable to replace those gatekeepers with, you'll only end up with a power vacuum. And power vacuums, more often than not, take time to fill with people who are righteous about wielding it. This is why regime change wars don't work, for example. You'll hardly ever get someone with a good head on their shoulders after the toppling of a past leader. Instead, you will most likely get someone desperate and radical. In 2003 Iraq, for example, ISIS replaced Saddam Hussein. In post-World War I Germany, Hitler replaced the Weimar dynasty. The same dynamic is currently happening in places like Syria and Ukraine, for example. All replacements were not just worse, but far worse than their predecessors, which were bad enough as they were already. This is the classic argument of Chesterton's fence. You stumble upon a random fence in the middle of the field. When you come upon this fence, you can ask one of two questions. Why is this fence here? Or how quickly can we carry it down? The former, the traditionalist answer, is always the better one to ask. The fence at one point had a purpose. You wouldn't build one if it didn't. This is common sense. And yet so many people, like they do in so many areas, fail to follow it. And the same is true with all of our institutions. Should we burn some of them completely to the ground? 100%. The FBI, Fox News, and Beyond Meat would be on my chopping block immediately, for starters. As soon as this opportunity began, people began to pounce on it. Depending on who was in power at the time in various sectors of culture, people began to upend institution after institution, inciting a revolution of some of the most foundational things we held dear. What is a woman? What makes someone a good candidate for the most powerful job in the world? What is the best way to live life? Some of these are very important topics. They should be debated and discussed in great detail. Viral actors such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Matt Walsh, and the School of Hard Knocks broke through in highly gated sectors such as politics, filmmaking, and business. This makes sense. These institutions are in the spotlight, and they should probably get eyeballs from that. Yet what was more interesting to watch is the institutions becoming upended that no one saw coming, and yet proved to be more important in terms of cultural cohesion than the ones everyone saw coming. The institution that no one saw coming, one that turned out to be ripe for revolution, was masculinity. Masculinity in American men had been under consistent assault and destruction for over half a century. No one in America, no man, even in the age of the internet, had gone viral in trying to help men, although many had tried, except for one. The one that finally broke through, the one that changed everything about the attention to, focus towards, and vision into masculinity, was a name that would soon become the most Googled search on the face of planet Earth: Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, a former world champion kickboxer who had pivoted to become an online influencer, became the first man to both truly grasp the frustrations and problems of young men and communicate to them in ways they best understood. This was the failure of Jordan Peterson in many ways. Jordan Peterson, to be very clear, is my hero and has been for a long time. But the issue with Jordan Peterson, one which he still hasn't addressed, is at the end of the day, He's still an old man in a three-piece suit lecturing like a college professor that he's been for 30 plus years. I happen to love it and find it endearing. Dr. Peterson has rightly earned the title of becoming the world's dad for this specific reason, among others. But Andrew Tate didn't have that problem. As I put in my second book, Toxic Immaturity, instead of taking the role of the disciplinarian and straight-laced dad, as Peterson did, Tate took a different role, that of the cool, successful older brother. He was handsome. He had tattoos and muscle that ripped through every part of his body. He made millions of dollars a month and used it to fund a lifestyle of supercars, mansions, and Ukrainian supermodels. He had the social capital and clout to take aim at the institutions that hated young men: the college system, feminism, woke corporate boardrooms, overbearing mothers. It should be noted that, from the jump, I don't believe that Andrew Tate is a good, sustainable role model for young men at all. He's crude, narcissistic, psychopathic, and unsustainable. He will eventually burn out, just like all the others who have tried, like Dan Bilzerian, Nick Fuentes, and others like them. It is good that he has not sustained the apex of his virality when he was dominating the cultural conversation and was kicked off of every major social media platform on the planet. But what I don't want to spend our time making another "what do you think about Andrew Tate" video. It's a waste of time. If you're looking for one, there are plenty of them out there. Instead, I want to focus on what Andrew Tate did. Even with all of his problems, it wouldn't be fair to say that Andrew Tate hasn't done somewhat of a service to young men. Like Jordan Peterson, who is a sustainable role model across time, he inspired millions of men through his content to improve themselves, to become better, to dedicate themselves to becoming someone worthy of being admired, followed, and respected. It is here that we come to another contrast between the two great masculine influencers of our age. To their credit, both Peterson and Tate talked about what happens to men when they don't improve themselves. And what happens to men when they don't improve themselves? Well, they descend into hell, obviously. They become addicted to drugs, Netflix, and pornography. They don't get a job and earn money. If continued over a number of years, they turn to fentanyl or a 9mm to end their lives. They think the hell they could face on the other side of life could be better than the hell of nihilism that they're faced with in this life. And they could very well be right. The difference, however, was in how they talked about that hell. Peterson, as was typical for him, talked in very ethereal terms. He talked about being a loser in real life in terms of what that could mean for the broader world, for your inability to take action, for your cosmic existence in and of itself. In a way, it wasn't real, which is exactly what Peterson's point was. His goal was to get people, particularly young men, to see the role they had to play in society, and it worked. But Andrew Tate talked about it differently, and more effectively, I would argue. He went right for the jugular, like he did with everything. It's not okay to be a broke, fat, ugly loser, are things he would say. If you don't get yourself right, a woman will never like you. You'll never leave your parents' basement. No one will ever respect you because you're a brokey and a joke. In other words, become like me, a top G, or else. And it worked. Millions of young men took to Andrew Tate's message and still do. Some, unfortunately, have taken it too far, which has led to misery for them. That's the part where Andrew Tate has yet to take an ounce of responsibility. The reality of people who look up to Andrew Tate is that they're most likely not going to end up like Andrew Tate, in the top 1% of everything that defines status for a man. This is where Peterson's long-term vision wins out. There is hardly anyone that could become Andrew Tate, but mostly anyone can become Jordan Peterson. Peterson is a gangly, normative, and otherwise casual man with a voice that sounds like Kermit the Frog. But he's also what Andrew Tate isn't. A man with a happy, monogamous marriage, children who will forever love him, that he's present for, at the head of a movement that will live long beyond him. For all that Andrew Tate has created, it will more likely all die with him. However, Andrew Tate has an interesting perspective on this, and something that I still believe is the truest thing to this date that Andrew Tate has ever said. A common retort to the Tate argument on masculine excellence is the following, quote unquote, "I just want to be average. I don't want to have a supercar," people say. "I want one wife, not 5 women. I want a small, comfortable, nice life with a house, a bit of a yard, and a couple kids with a steady job. I don't want to be a top G. I don't want to be excellent. In other words, I just want to be average, like everyone else, to have what my father had before me." In response, Tate said the following earth-shattering truth. That reality doesn't exist anymore. To prove it, Tate offered up a contrast, the, quote, average life of a man in the 1950s versus that of the, quote, average man today. In the 1950s, for example, the average man's lifestyle was the following. He could provide for a wife and a family on a single income. Interest rates on homes and homes themselves were remarkably affordable. There were plenty of jobs that needed masculine traits, most of which provided a pension for retirement. There were millions of women who wanted a masculine man to marry and who would have been happy to take care of a home and raise children. A college education wasn't needed. In fact, for men, it was largely an inhibitor to success. You could and were encouraged to be involved in many community activities outside of work. Christianity was championed. There weren't any dyes in our food. Pornography was non-existent. Obesity was almost unfathomable. Today's average man, to put it mildly, does not live in this world. The reality of the average man today is far more bleak. Most men today are obese, addicted to pornography, and still living off their parents, especially if they're young. They are so tied down in debt with non-bankruptable student loans and $30,000 in average credit card debt that they can't fathom taking on a mortgage, if they could even get approved for one. Feminism has polluted the minds of women, which demoralizes men on the dating market at every turn. AI and trade deals, along with the promotion of elite college educations, most of which are financially out of reach for most men, have outsourced masculine elements of labor and imported feminine ones. Wages have stagnated. Most churches and social institutions cater to women, not men. They are completely cut off from everything that matters. This is not as an exaggeration, by the way. It is reality, one that Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate both saw. Peterson made a valiant and correct effort to steer young men in the direction of his solution. Aim up, take on responsibility, create meaning for your life. But it was Andrew Tate's message that resonated most deeply, that was communicated the most effectively to young men. And when boiled down, it actually wasn't much different than Peterson's. They are, oddly enough, mostly two sides of the same coin. However, Tate, much like he does with everything, put it in as stark contrast as he could. Being average in today's world is no longer acceptable. In fact, average isn't just unacceptable, it's a death sentence, quite literally. To be addicted to alcohol, debt, drugs, food, porn, and your parents' basement is to both Peterson and Tate's points, sentence yourself to living in hell. Yet sadly, this is where the majority of our young men reside. The statistics do not lie about this. Our young men, particularly over the past decade, have been enslaved to all of society's worst vices. We have done nothing to reach out, to help them. Moreover, we don't just not help them, we affirm them in their mediocrity. Johnny will figure out eventually, they say. Oh, he's just going through some things, we assure others and ourselves. Your 20s are for figuring your life out, they assert. Wrong, wrong, wrong. This isn't just bad advice, it's harmful advice. Parents who say these things should know this fact. By telling their children, especially their young men, that they cannot launch into the world, that they can delay maturity, that they don't have to become excellent, is to put nails in their own coffins. Both mothers and fathers are at fault here, by the way. Mothers, due to their nurturing nature, when taken to excess, coddle their sons until they devour them alive, just like Hansel and Gretel. They excuse everything about their inadequacies. They chalk it up to being someone or something else's fault and not their own. They tell them lies about how they're so much better than they are when they're actually not. Then when their world comes crashing down on them, as it inevitably will, of course, they protect them, pulling their young men into their clutches so they can take care of them, mother them permanently. As for fathers, their biggest contribution to the failure to launch their sons is a failure of masculine leadership. Fathers need to be the ones pushing their children, boys and girls, outside of their comfort zones. If a child fails to launch, it is because the father did not pair him to launch by encouragement or calling them higher. It's as simple as that. Combine that with an overbearing mother, and you will have an entire generation of men believing the same horrible lie, that yesterday's average is good enough for today. This episode is dedicated to me stepping in and telling you what your parents never had the guts to tell you, that what they told you is a lie. It is not okay to be average anymore, especially as a man, because it's not okay to commit yourself to living in hell. It's not okay to be fat. It's not okay to be broke. It's not okay to be unable to defend yourself. It's not okay to not be able to talk to girls. It's not okay to succumb to unrepentant pornography consumption. It's not okay to be living under the tyranny of your parents' coddling. Andrew Tate about this issue is right. If you're average in today's society, you're a failure. You have failed as a man. Allow that to sink in. Really allow yourself to feel it. So that being said, if it's not okay to be average, what people must do today, particularly men, what can they do? That answer is equally simple, but far harder to execute. You must be excellent. You must be a ruthless, unforgiving savage about making yourself into a beast. You cannot afford to stoop to the level of men in our culture today. To do that is to die, and to die a horrifying and slow death. I don't want that for anyone, particularly for any man that is a part of my audience. What does this look like? How about, for starters, having a gut that hangs over your waistline? You work out like an absolute savage every day until you see a six-pack come through. How about, instead of curling in your bed like an impotent wimp watching porn all night, you develop a plan to ask out a woman by the end of the month and, actually do it? How about, instead of complaining about capitalism or the economy or inflation, you man up, get coaching, acquire skills, and get a job or start a business? How about, instead of pitying yourself, living in a state of bleak nihilism, you admit you're hopeless, like we all are, and submit to Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? This is a good start, but it's not nearly enough. Being excellent is not optional. It is required to be a man who achieves anything in today's world. Even if you want a quote-unquote average life, like your dad and grandpa did, and as I do, by the way, you will have to fight tooth and nail to get it. Inflation isn't going anywhere. Sorry to burst your bubble. The job market will suck for a long time and will probably get worse. The rot of modern womanhood runs far deeper than it does for modern manhood. We're going to be stuck there for another 10 years, I predict. There is no one coming to save you, nor to solve any of your problems for you. Get over it. Suck it up. Be a man. If you don't, the world will continue to kick you in the teeth until you finally learn your lesson, if you learn it at all. This episode is dedicated to helping you learn it faster than most men do. In addition, I'm also here to deliver some good news. You can be excellent. In fact, it's never been easier to be excellent. The amount of knowledge and resources at your disposal today has never been easier to come by. The amount of mentorship that is taking place, most of which is free, by the way, is insane. If you look hard enough, most PDFs of books are on the internet. You can ask ChatGPT for anything. It's amazing. But excellence is not relegated to one piece of knowledge or one resource. Excellence, like everything else in life, is a choice. You can either choose to be excellent or choose to be a loser. The choice, as always, is yours. And it's okay if you aren't there yet, by the way, because I'm not in many ways. And most men who quote-unquote have it figured out aren't there either. The point is that you're on the path to getting there. But yet the same principle holds true in the inverse. If you're not a loser yet, and you're not doing what you can to become excellent, you're on your way to becoming a loser. You'll know it when you're there, because I've been there. Trust me. I would prefer that you've not ever been where I've been in that department. So if I can provide a recommendation, get excellent. Work really hard for a really long period of time. Cut all the toxic and negative people out of your life. Put down the pornography, the booze, and the weed. Stop eating like garbage and never stepping foot in the gym. Stop talking to women who don't respect you or themselves. Stop allowing your weak mind to prevent you from becoming a man. Stop pretending you're better than someone who believes in God, because you're not. Make these choices, and you'll end up making better ones because of them. And more importantly, you'll be on the path to excellence. Excellent, value-driven men are the key to cultural revival. If you're not one of those men, you are a part of the problem. There is no alternative to the excellence that men must strive for in today's world. To believe there is to stunt yourself from ever achieving anything. Become a savage. Do the work. Get your hands dirty. Get after it. It's the only way. It's only a matter of when you learn that it is the only way. Coming in hot today, folks. Didn't want to mince words on that. I try to never do, but especially in that, I'm really passionate about this topic. Have been for a while. Glad you're here, by the way. If you're still here after this, you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's like awful, etc. So, okay. So average sucks. We've discussed that. Average sucks. If you're average today, or if you're comparing yourself to the average levels of whatever back in the day, you're behind in a wide variety of metrics. By net worth, by physical fitness, by everything else. If you're measuring yourself both by today and by yesterday, you're behind. Because the world's faster now. The world's better now. The world is more cruel, violent, vicious, especially towards men than it ever has been before. To be average based on the statistics is to sentence yourself, to a life of misery. That's not good. I don't want that for anybody, especially anyone watching this program. So, and the sad part about it is I think most men know this, and they know that like the average stuff they're doing isn't working, that we know that like college is ridiculous, for example. Like we know that, a lot of what we've been told about the way the world works is kind of a lie, and that it's changing anyway, so it's not going to be relevant in like 3 to 5 years anyway, if that. And so it's just average by the way it was defined, the way that we have defined, the way that I've defined it for a long time is just, it doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't. And we need to raise the bar of what average means so we can set a new baseline that actually helps people instead of harms them. And then 2, we need to understand really what prevents most people from getting to that place of the new average, which needs to be excellent compared to the old average. So excellence is the only way to average. It's kind of almost like an inverse in that way. And because average by all of the metrics that we've discussed sucks. Most men are fat. Most men are addicted to pornography. Most men are, their sperm counts are rapidly dropping every single day. It's like, it's not, their testosterone levels are through the floor. They're not taking any risks. They're not moving off their parents. They're not financially independent. Like being an average man today sucks. It sucks. And we should be more open about having this conversation. And so excellence is the only way to get forward. And it's and the reason why is because of 3 reasons primarily. So I think if you're kind of saying like, oh, I just want to be average and Sam, you're wrong about all this, just hear me out on these. So I have 3, I think, pretty good reasons as to why basically most people are not going to achieve anything because they're settling for that old definition of quote unquote average when it's really not average at all. It's actually just an excuse for failure and broader stuff at the end of the day too. So number 1, the first reason why average sucks is that it's too competitive of a world today. It's too competitive a world. I remember my dad let me know about this early. He really understood this from way quicker than a lot of other. My dad's an incredibly smart guy, but he knew this very, very early. He knew this far quicker than any of like the smart people out there, whatever those mean. So my dad would always say, like he would say this to my grandparents because my grandparents are still very ignorant to this stuff, and I love my grandparents, but they're still just not tuned in. So my dad entered the workforce in the mid-90s, and he went into manufacturing engineering. He's an engineer by trade. He's now an executive and does a bunch of things with engineering firms. And so my dad saw globalization unfold in real time, and it was from a couple of fronts. The first one was the outsourcing of labor, the change in the economics going from a goods-based economy to a service-based economy, the advancement of higher education requirements for people, for example. And so he saw a lot of those things unfold in real time, and he began to think to himself, that like, oh wow, like it's like the world is now open. Like the United States is open for business for anyone who wants to come here. And because the United States is the greatest country in the world, it still is the greatest country in the world with the best companies, the best opportunity, the best quality of life, the best college educational opportunities, etc. What he saw, because my dad would go to universities all the time. He'd visit research labs of high-level engineering schools. We were in the Midwest, so he'd go to like Purdue was a famous one. Ohio State was a good one. Cleveland State was right by us. And so he'd go to all of these different schools. And he saw the demographics of the students that were coming in to become engineers, for example. And he was very impressed with mostly people that were coming from outside of the United States. People from India, people from Africa, people from China, people from Japan. These exchange students that would come to America for educational opportunity, get a job here. And he immediately began to realize that he only had to compete largely in college and for a job with people that were in this country. And there's a lot of people in this country. There's hundreds of millions of people in the United States. There's good jobs out there, but you still have to compete for them. But what my dad said, he's like, oh, this is going to get so much more competitive because the world is now open to everybody. Everyone wants to come to the U.S. Everyone wants to get a great education. Everyone wants to get a really good job. And so he's like, oh, wow, we need to do something about this. And he did. And so basically what my dad would always tell me is like, Sam, you're going to have it so much harder than I am from this perspective, from just the volume of competition that you're going to be facing. And that's true. It's still true today because the world today is so open. And the information, now this is, I think, going to compound this even further. It's not just because we have more bodies to compete with. That's one dynamic of it, which is a thing we should consider, obviously. But the second thing is that the information is so available to all those folks as well, which is making it easier than ever for others to compete and for you to compete, by the way. So it's a good thing for you, but also know that everyone else is more competitive. It's not just that the floodgates have been opened for more people from either other countries or people in different parts of the United States or wherever to have access to the same opportunities that you are and the average quote unquote life that you want. It's that basically the level of access they have to all the things they do need to be average, successful, etc., are way more available than they once were. And so the point of this is that today's world, from multiple perspectives, and everyone has their hard. I want to put, like, every generation has had it hard, but the hard of this generation is it's far harder than at any other point in history in this perspective in terms of achieving an average life because of the sheer volume and the sheer quality, so it's a quality and quantity issue, of people that are trying to do something with their lives. Now, should you let people that are successful dictate your success? Absolutely not. That's to externalize your control. I don't recommend doing that at all. But the reality is, if you want to get something, if you want to get after it, you got to get after it. Because if you don't, someone else is right behind you, licking at your heels, ready to take it from you. And this is not to put you in a mindset of scarcity. There's abundance out there. But just know, man, it's like if you're going out there, you better crack your brass knuckles with you. Because if you go out there without thinking that someone's going to try to clock you across the face to go get theirs while you're trying to get yours, you are dead wrong. You are dead wrong. And so many of them are failing in this way as well. There's also that possibility, and you're seeing this in real time in America for sure. But the bottom line is, if you do not shape yourself into becoming someone who can compete in this marketplace, in any marketplace, whether it's tech, finance, education, women, whatever, you will find yourself very behind very fast. And that's maybe the number one thing I hear from men that I talk to that are looking to me for advice or guidance or whatever, for people generally, is that it's that, the thing that people say now is, I feel behind. And what I have really begun to tell them recently is that you probably are. I'm sorry to say, but you probably are behind. And like, that sucks. Like, being behind sucks. Because you know that, like, oh boy, I need to get my act together here. And you do. You do need to get your act together. And so I'm done trying to sugarcoat all this stuff and say, like, you know what? You can just figure out at your own pace. You can just do whatever. No. If you feel behind, you are. You probably are. And should you let that dominate your thought patterns? No. But should you be real with yourself and say, hey, I probably need to get my stuff together in a certain way or another? Yes. Yes, you should. Which leads to the second opportunity, or the second reason for this, is that the alternative to not being excellent, to being average, as we have defined it for so long, it's just too horrible. It's too horrible to be average now. Because the alternative for not going at, let's really spell this out here. The alternative for not going after excellence, as mentioned, being okay with living like most men do, their unfulfilled life, they're mired in debt, they're eating crap food, they're feeling terrible about themselves all the time. And but I could speak from experience here. Like, I'm not saying that, like, I'm not using this to, like, dump on men. This is not what this episode's about. This is about calling men higher. This is not about condemning. This is about convicting people. I've been in all those places. I've been a loser before, and it sucks. And it really, really sucks. Like, it sucks to having so much social anxiety that anytime a woman comes within 10 feet of you, you automatically break out into a sweat. It sucks being hooked on internet porn and not having the self-control or the discipline to stop watching it. It sucks being 40 pounds overweight and stuffing your face with food to feel better. It sucks not having any friends and not having any people to call or people that are checking in on you or whatever. It sucks only relying on your achievement and education as a single point of failure in your life. It sucks not knowing that there's a God out there that loves you and cares about you and wants to adopt you as a son. It sucks being average. And I've been there, man. I've been there. I know how you feel. And it's horrible. So I'm sorry about that, because it really does suck. But that said, given that it sucks, you can't stay there, because you know that it sucks, and you know that it's awful where you're at. Like, you know that. If you've been there and you've gotten out of that, first of all, congratulations and shout out to you. You know what that's like. I've thought about this recently. It's like, I think I'm more afraid of going back than I am excited about going forward, because I know how bad it is in some ways. There's This is probably a quote that's been said by someone far wiser than this in the past, but the dude that played Storm Shadow in the first G.I. Joe movie, he was like twirling this ninja star, and he had this line that said, "Fear is a great motivator," and that's so right. That's so true. I am so terrified of going back to where I was. It's like I'm never going back there, ever. And I'm excited about my future. I think my future is going to be, hopefully, God willing, pretty good. But I would be a liar if I said that I was not just so gosh darn terrified to go back to where I was. Because I am. I'm really, really afraid of not doing well. And that's just like, it just sucks, dude. It really, really sucks. So even though it is hard to be excellent, trying to be excellent, getting yourself out of the averageness, quote unquote, it's hard in the short term for sure, because shifting your mindset from an average mindset to an excellence-based mindset is like jarring. It's a very jarring experience to kind of go out and to kind of say like, whoa, I was this bad and this and whatever. But it's far worth it in the long term simply for the fact of what I just said. Being average sucks. Average sucks. And it's just because of what you avoid, just because of the asteroid that does not hit your planet, you will, like, it's worth it for that reason alone. Even if your life doesn't become a massive roaring success, at least you're not miserable. Like, that's a win, I think, today, honestly, ladies, just not being in an awful state of misery. That's a win as far as I'm concerned, especially now. As maybe sad as it is, I don't know if that's sad to say or not, but that's how I feel. And so, however, after you get out of the misery, let's start there. If you keep pursuing excellence, this is what I've seen from myself, from everybody that I know that lives a really excellent life, or that tries to live an excellent life, is you will live a better life. And this is the thing that we want to anchor on. This was what the conversation should be focused on. This point is not talked about much, but it really should be, as far as I'm concerned. This is, again, where Jordan Peterson knocks us out of the park. Excellence is an adventure, no matter how you pursue excellence. It's an adventure. It's not like a destination. Like it's not the destination's journey. It's such a cliche, but it is, because it's like you will never get there if you're trying to become excellent. You will never hit your goals. Sorry, because an excellence mindset is always about growth. It's always about getting better. And so it's not necessarily about setting these massive, audacious goals. And I'm a fan of goal setting to a degree, but I think habits are way more important than goals when it comes to excellence. Like, I think, hitting 10% body fat one time is far less admirable of a goal than being a far less admirable a situation rather than being 15% body fat for 40 years. 15% for the rest of your life, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. But if you just hit 10% once and you go back to 20, it's like, what does that do? It's not sustainable. Again, sustainability is the goal here. It should be the goal here, at least. So, and I think I don't think I know. I've begun to experience this a lot now, and I'm so grateful for this. But like, man, life is freaking awesome if you do it right. It's really great if you do it right. If you do the things that make people successful and get away from the things that make people average, life is really awesome. And do I own a yacht? No. Do I fly private? No. Do I have like this massive mansion of a house? No. Like, I really don't want those things, to be honest. Never have. And I'm grateful for that, by the way. But like, having an excellence mindset around just your life generally, it's like, I have pretty great friends. I have pretty great family members who like love me and stuff. I have the God of the universe. It's my dad. Like, it's pretty awesome. Like, I can beat up 99% of the world's population. That's pretty cool. I'm in better shape than 95% of the people walking the face of the planet. That's pretty awesome. I got a job that I like. I don't have to depend on, some, demonic corporation to feed me. Like, that's pretty cool. So it's like when you have things you want to achieve, and when you want to push yourself beyond where you currently are and get to a better place, life becomes awesome. It becomes awesome because you will actually be going for something instead of sitting on your rear end and doing nothing, which is what most people are doing. Most people sit back and they wait for life to happen to them. But you have the opportunity to be the opposite and do the opposite. If you pursue excellence, you will happen to life. Life will not happen to you. And I think that's a very, very worthwhile thing for every man to try to pursue. And every man's pursuit of excellence is going to be different. And that's fine. Like, your definition of excellence is not to be my definition of excellence. That's not what this is about. It's not pardon my French, like a dick measuring competition. It's not. It's not a pissing contest. But what does your definition of success look like? I can guarantee you it's not average. So don't be average, because average is not an option. So then the logical question, after we come to, okay, average sucks, got it. What does it truly take to be a top performer? What does it truly take to be a quote unquote 1% man in terms of that? And I think I remember this blew my brain when I first comprehended it. So I've mentioned this group a couple times before. I have a friend and a mentor named Hafiz Bayoku. Shout out to Hafiz. He's basically the guy who's helped me scale this channel to the point it is. It's not huge yet, but Hafiz has made it a lot better than it would have been if I had just gone by my way. So he's done a lot for me in that regard. But anyway, in any event, so he runs this men's organization called The Standard, the Affluent Standard. And so I've been a part of it basically since the beginning. It's an awesome group. It continues to improve and get better. It's awesome. And so we have a conference at the end of every single year in December. It's in a couple months in Dallas, Texas. I live in Austin. I just drive up to I-35 and I'm there in like 3 hours. So last year, Hafiz was given one of his speeches at the conference, and he brought up this graph from Patrick Bet-David. And it's going to be on the thumbnail. I can't pull it up now. I don't have like an editor to go back and say, like, here's the graph or whatever. So just imagine it or look at the thumbnail, one of the two. And look this up, by the way. It's called The Gap by Patrick Bet-David. And by the way, not a fan of Patrick Bet-David. Said that multiple times. I do think however, he's very smart. He gives some good advice sometimes. So I'm not like totally anti-Patrick Bet-David. Do I think people should look up to him? No. Do I think he's kind of a scumbag? Yes. But anyway, Hafiz has been really kind of mentored by PBD for a long time. Hafiz has a lot higher opinion of PBD than I do. That's fine. And so they text sometimes. He was on his podcast many times because PBD lived in Dallas for a while before he moved down to Fort Lauderdale. And so Hafiz pulls up this graph, and it basically says, this is Patrick Bet-David. He did kind of a statistical analysis of what it takes to be a top 1% performer. And he went through it, and I encourage you to go through it as well. And it wrecked me the first time I heard it. And showed because the reason why it did was because it showed something in a visual format that I knew was true for a very long time. Like, I had an inclination that this was true, but I never actually believed it like tangibly up until a certain point in time. And what it shows for people who are either looking at it or they're Googling it or they're just not doing either, that's fine. So basically what PBD broke together was the top. So think of it like XY axis. So basically it is on the horizontal axis. It's the 1% man, the 5%, the 10%, the 20%, and like the rest of the 80%. So maybe 1%, 10%, 20, and then 80. So it's like four lines of the categories of people that are truly excellent in what they do. So the top 1%, the top 10, the top 20, and then the top 80, and the rest of the 80%. And so on the vertical axis was a level of performance. So it was 1 through 10. How well did you do at a certain day? Like I crushed the day. I did everything I was going to do. That day's a 10. And 1 is like, I didn't even get out of bed this morning. I spent my day in my mom's basement watching porn and binging Netflix. Like, that's a 1. So the level of productivity or the level of goodness of your day versus how many achieve that. So what they did was they graphed a line for each of these between them. And this was very interesting. So what they found was for most people, so let's take the 10%, the 20%, and the other 80%, was that for the 10s and 20s, their high was a 10. They peaked at a 10 out of 10 for their days. They could hit their best days. But the difference between the top 10 and the top 20% and the top 1%, the other 80%, they would get up to like an 8 and they'd fall to a 1 like all often. The 20 and the 10%, they would fall like a 4 on their worst day. They'd fall like a 4. The top 1%, on the other hand, they didn't let themselves fall below an 8. Their low point was an 80% of 80% crushed this day, did everything I was going to do, which is a massive gulf between the others. And so what this, I'll talk about this in a second, but like overall, the price of high performance, when people talk about quote unquote high performance, it is so much higher than people are willing to admit. It is so much higher. And this graph by PBD was such a visceral, like gut-wrenching reminder of just how vicious a certain type of mindset is compared to other people. Like the people who are really high performer, top G, like getting after it all the time, it's like they are just on a completely different level, like numerically by data. And PBD is only one data source, but again, it's kind of a universal truth. And so what this says, I think what this did to me the most was that it reframed what I measure greatness by. So the true measure of greatness is not where you are on your best day. It's not where you are on your best day, because anyone can celebrate that. Anyone can relate to that. Every man especially loves to come home from work and tell his wife, honey, I crushed that shit today. I blew that day out of the water. I hate all my meetings. I got a great performance review, did all that kind of stuff. We love to celebrate our wins, and we should celebrate our wins. That's awesome. That's great. But also, anyone can celebrate a win. Anyone can relate to that. Instead, the true measure of greatness is where you fall on your worst day. Ooh, that's a devastating thing to think about. Really think about that. The true measure of your greatness is what you do on your worst day. So basically, based on that graph, if you're a top 1% man, your worst day is you had an 8 out of 10 day. That's like unfathomable to me even. And you go across, if you're in the top 10%, your worst day is like a 4. Top 20%, your worst day is like a 2. 80%, their worst day is a 0 or 1. One of the two. So think about it this way. So when you have a bad day, everyone has bad days, multiple of them probably, especially if you're going after something and pursuing excellence. So when a bad thing happens, when you get in rough patches with your marriage, when you don't close a deal, when you don't make a certain amount of money, when you have a crappy workout at the gym, whatever, what do you do when that happens? What do you do in that scenario? Do you fall apart and crumble when adversity hits, whatever that adversity might be? Or do you rise back up and you do become better than what you were? Do you not let yourself fall below an 8? So essentially, to put it in very crude terms, how long does it take you to recover from getting kicked in the face by life in whatever that comes in? So essentially this is kind of the real kicker of all this thing. So basically what this, and there's kind of a double-edged sword of this, because high performers can still suffer from this, and I'll get to that in a second. But like, in terms of when you see someone you look up to, like I have a couple people that I view as like excellent in my life, that like truly excellent people, like truly 1% men, they never have a bad day. And it's not that they don't have a bad day or they feel bad about it, because we'll get to that in a second, but like, it's not that they don't have bad days. That's where this externalization from people that say like, oh, he's got an easy life, must be nice, etc. No. They have bad days. It's just a matter of whether they let their bad days affect them and affect their performance. How they are with their kids, how they are with their wife, how they are with their job, how they are with their business, how they are with their fitness, how they are with their faith walk, whatever. So for 1% men, for excellent men, it knocks them down 2 pegs, and they say, okay, that's fine. I'll just deal with it, and I'll get back up to anywhere between an 8 and a 10 the next day. But for lesser men who are not excellent or not striving after excellence, it crushes them. It crushes them. So back to the double-edged sword point. So for high performers, this is a massive affirmation. So all my striving 1%, my 1% guys out there, this is a affirmation to you, as it should be. Because the curse of high performance, and anyone who is a extremely type A person like me, who hangs on every failure, who wears his heart on his sleeve in terms of this, who just crushes himself every single day with I didn't do good enough, I'm not good enough, no one's going to love me, whatever the thought might be through your head, is that they don't believe that anything can be good enough. You don't believe that anything can be good enough. And therefore, by extension, that they will never be good enough. I will never be good enough because I did not perform today. And what this happens, the tragedy about this for the high performer types, the type A people, is they have a massive insecurity against any setback, that they will do anything to prevent them from backsliding. This leads to tremendous anxiety, fear of failure, just racing thoughts. You can't sleep at night, whatever. You wake up dreaming about your work or about something you got to do the next day because you're so terrified of it. So again, this is the price of excellence, right? Because the price of excellence is saying, I will not fall below an 8. I will not allow my standards to become, disappointed in that way. And that sucks. I live that life. That life sucks in some ways. But again, the alternative is far worse. The alternative for not being excellent is far worse. So for my low-performing people out there, my non-1% guys, let this be a massive wake-up call for you. A massive wake-up call. Because for people who are not excellent, for non-excellent men, most of their days are spent at the low end of that gap spectrum. 4, 3, 5, 6, maybe a 10, like one day of the month. But they're just toiling. They're just like 5, 3, 2, 7 maybe. Groundhog Day over and over again. They're just kind of miring in this low state. And what they do in those situations, because I've been there, is they justify whatever stupid excuse they've given themselves as to why they can't win. My boss hates me. My wife's a whatever. My kids drain me. Slow metabolism. I got to stick it to the man. The man isn't letting me move up in the company. Whatever. And so they tell themselves these lies over and over and over and over again. I just can't lose weight. Girls don't like me, whatever. So they tell themselves all of these BS nonsense excuses that they've given themselves as to why they can't be excellent, why they can't win. So this is, again, a wake-up call, especially in the terms of the gap chart for all of you guys who are in this mindset right now. You must confront the reality of that it's not your circumstances that are causing you to lose, it's you. Your circumstances aren't the problem, you're the problem. It's not your job's fault, it's not your wife's fault, it's not your kid's fault, it's not the gym's fault, it's not God's fault, it's your fault. You're not good enough. I'm sorry everyone's told you the opposite, but you're not good enough. If you're not living the life you want to live, you're not good enough. That is your fault. It's not capitalism. It's not Trump, Biden, Putin, whatever. It's not their fault. It's your fault. So what I recommend, the only option is to get excellent. Like I mentioned, average sucks. You must be excellent. You must achieve excellence, or you will live in the state that you're currently living for the rest of your life, blaming everyone else for why your life sucks. You'll never do anything. You'll never achieve anything. You'll never be happy. It will continue that way for you for a very long time if you let it. So I'd recommend not letting it. I want to go to more of a cultural topic here. So this is, I think, this excellence mindset, particularly when it comes to masculinity, I think a cultural example that encapsulates this perfectly is the rise of Islam among younger men. And I think I've been watching this for a while. And by the way, I'm a Christian. I believe Jesus is the Son of God. I don't believe Islam is a valid religion. I don't believe in universalism, whatever. Although I have many Muslim friends, many friends in my communities that I'm a part of that I know personally. They're wonderful people. They're wonderful people. And I don't want this to be like, I don't hate Islamic people at all or Muslim people. Like I don't. But I'm a Christian, so I'm going to advocate for my religion, if that's okay. On my platform, it should be okay. Anyway, even this YouTube might take this down, but who knows? So Islam, it's been very interesting because I've had multiple friends that have converted to Islam over the last couple of years. Like multiple friends in terms of like they were either raised a certain way, they were raised Muslim, they were raised Christian, or they were atheists, and they've just converted to Islam over the last couple of years. And it's interesting because I've seen this and I'm like, okay, well, what's behind that? Because the same is, I think, happening more and more in Christianity now, but it's just more, I'm seeing a rise in Islam unlike what I've ever seen in the past. And so I'm like, well, okay, why is that happening? And I think it's becoming more popular for young men for the following very uncomfortable reason. And this is going to offend some people. So Christianity does not emphasize masculine excellence, particularly evangelical Christianity, the non-traditional, non-Orthodox, non-Catholic Christian sects. They do not emphasize masculine excellence and masculine leadership and masculine authority. Islam does emphasize that. They emphasize the importance of masculinity, the importance of being a man, the importance of being a father, all those type of things. And what we've seen is this is really taking over the culture. So I talked about Andrew Tate, in my earlier segment. And Tate converted from Christianity to Islam for this reason. Now it could be trolling or whatever, but that's exactly true. But you watch, the UFC, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev, Hamzat Chimaev, like all these guys, Amir Albazi, like all these guys who are really dominating the UFC now. Like Islam is everywhere in terms of that. You look at boxing, Devin Haney, Tank Davis, like all these guys are just, they're converting to Islam. Young black men especially. And so it's swinging. So you have these big tough guys, right? Like these massive, like Tate's, think about what what you want, but like Tate could beat the heck out of anybody. He has for the majority of his life. So could Tank Davis and Devin Haney and Khabib, obviously, and all these other guys. And young men are seeing this and they're saying like, oh, that's what a man looks like. So I might as well follow what he does. And that's why I think a lot of people are really just swinging towards Islam versus Christianity, because Christianity, and again, I think this is changing now, but especially over the last 10 years, I'm like, whoa, this is a big deal. And I think that overall, as a Christian, again, I have a lot of Muslim friends. I think Muslims are great people for the most part. I've never met a Muslim that's been outwardly mean to me or said like, you're an infidel or like whatever. So like, and I live in America, by the way. Americans are nice people. But as a Christian, this is a catastrophe. This is a disaster for our culture, for Christian culture. So if we lose young men in droves, which we are, and they're coming back in droves, we're also losing them in droves to this nihilism, to Islam, to multi-universalism, whatever you want to call it. And if we continue to just peddle the same just nonsense that's keeping young men away from the church, which is built on strong masculinity, don't get it twisted, it is. It's built on Christ, obviously, but men are the heads of household. We are the spiritual leaders of our families, of our communities, of our nation. It will falter and it will fail. It will falter and fail if we do not fix this issue with Christian masculinity, with Christian excellence. And I, by the way, I again, to maybe affirm some of my Muslim friends here, I understand the appeal of this. I do. I'm not going to convert to Islam. I believe in Jesus. I don't believe in Allah. But I understand the appeal of Islam to young men. Because you know why? All men want to be men. All men want to be the man. They want to be the man of the house. They want to be the cool dad down the street. They want to be the guy who's bringing in the money and does this and does that. Any man who tells you that that's not what they want, they're lying to you. And they're lying to themselves at a core level, first and foremost, but they're lying to you as well. All men want to be the man. They want to be a provider. They want to be respected. They want to have status in the family, in the community. And Islam, to its credit, has always provided that. Even though I believe it's demonic, I believe it's a cult, obviously, because it's not Christianity. But Islam has always gotten that right. They've always gotten that right. And they've been horrible in terms of the way they've implemented it, particularly over in the Middle East. Like I'm not a fan of, this is not like pro-jihadi, like at all, obviously. But like this is something that they've always seemed to have gotten this right. And Christianity, by contrast, in the West especially, has gone away from this, which has caused their numbers among men about retention inside the church membership, etc., to be abysmal, especially among young men. So this needs to be a massive wake-up call to the church. The church has gone soft, which has driven the young men away. Young men want order. We want structure. We want rules. We want mission. We do not want this kind of like airy-fairy, nice gospel, whatever. We want the truth. We want the truth. We want it hard. We want it fast. And we want it from the Bible. None of this be rich and God will drop a Ferrari on your front yard. None of that stuff. No. Like, oh, God loves you even if you are unrepentant in your sin. No. This is a wake-up call to the church. You must not only embrace men. That's just one part of it. And that's not enough. You need to embrace masculinity. If the church is not masculine, the church will not get men, period. Full stop. There needs to be an edge to Christianity. There needs to be I like to say it all the time with Mark Driscoll, who's one of my favorite pastors. You need to preach with your brass knuckles on. You need to be a brawler in the pulpit. And I'm not saying be a bully. I'm not saying demean women. I'm not saying, replace the gospel with some kind of worldly Andrew Tate style nonsense. But there needs to be some kind of a tough guy nature to Christianity, or else it fails. It just doesn't work if you don't do it that way. And I know men have different temperaments and all that kind of stuff. That's my pastors. That's fine. But this edge of Christianity is built into the religion. Jesus himself said, I believe in the Gospel of Luke, I did not come to bring peace. I came to bring a sword. I was sent here to divide families, to divide nations, to start wars. That's what Jesus said. And we have gone away from that, which has driven men who are wanting that edge to other places, to Islam especially. So if the church does not develop that edge and put that edge back into the pulpit, into the faith, young men won't follow it. We just won't. We will continue to lose numbers. And you know what we'll end up being? We'll end up being just like Europe. Europe is in the process of, Douglas Murray predicted this 10 years ago, is in the process of committing suicide. Christian Europe is committing suicide right now because it's completely impotent. It doesn't have teeth. It doesn't preach with brass knuckles on. The days of Spurgeon and C.S. Lewis and all the guys over there that really just were titans of the faith, that's gone. Completely gone. And you know what's reigning supreme over there? It's Islam. Islam is taking over Europe. Because strength against strength, Islam wins in Europe because it's a toothless, feckless, impotent Christianity. And it's happening in America as well. And do I want Muslims to be comfortable living in America? Yes. Do I want them to have places to worship? Yes. But do I believe that the church should sit back and take it? No, because I believe that Christianity is right. And I believe that Christianity is the truth. And I believe Christianity is the only way to have a functional society long term. And Europe is learning that the hard way now. And so the church needs to not only accommodate men, but we need to accommodate masculinity and preach masculinity in the pulpit. Or else we're in for a heap of trouble. And we already are. And there's been some positive momentum, but there needs to be more. We cannot get complacent about this at all. I was going back and forth with a guy on YouTube. It says I smack my lips. I don't even know what that means, but I'm sorry if I'm doing that. Again, by the way, I have a glass of water because I'm just yelling at this microphone for an hour. But okay, so putting a bow on all of this, it's just the bottom line of this whole episode is that if you're a man out there, it's not okay to be weak. It's not okay to be weak. You are meant for more as a man than to live a life in comfort and care your entire life. And to be honest, that's what women want. That's not what men want. And you know that if you're a man. You don't want that. And I don't think really women want that, especially they don't want that out of their men, especially, but they don't want that totally by themselves. But men especially don't want that. There's this Jack London quote that I cite all the time. I heard it in a James Bond movie once. It's actually really good. That my goal is to live, not just to exist. I will use my time. I love that quote. So good, man. So good. So the former excellence of men back in the day, like in early America, early society, whatever, in exchange for the current weakness of men currently right now, this epidemic of weakness we're seeing across men, young men especially, it's sad to see, not only because of all of the things we've cited today in terms of the information and all that sort of thing, but because it destroys men. It just degrades them. It makes them less. And it destroys cultures along with it. Like it's destroying Europe. It's destroying America now. If men are not promoted to be strong, the culture falls right along with it. And the really sad thing about all this is that most men will never break out of it. Most men will never break out of this. Even if it's not as visible as it can be. Like, Henry David Thoreau had this one quote that says, famous quote that says, most men live lives of quiet desperation. That's true. Even if it's not as visible, in terms of, it is visible today, because you see men on the street, you see guys that are living in their mom's basement, whatever. Most men are never going to break out of this if they get stuck in it for a while. And if you notice this enough, like I think maybe a challenge to you afterwards would be just to look around the next time you go to like a restaurant or you go to a store or something. Look at the men you see. Look at the men you see and say, is that man, is he living in a place of power or is he living in a place of weakness? Most men are in the second category. They are. Because most men are not truly living. Because most men are not excellent. Just the flat out truth of it. They're overweight, shabby clothing, not taking care of themselves. Their wife is bossing them around all the time, whatever. Job kind of is okay. Sucks, maybe, probably, honestly. So the only way you can truly live free, especially as a man, is if you're living for excellence and being who you become or striving to be who you can become other than what you are. So I will tell you what the culture will not. We need men to be masculine. And not only that, we need men to be excellent. And what that means is you need to go out and get after it. You need to go take it for yourself. Obviously, bad example of this from a morality perspective, but there was, The Departed has this great quote from Frank Costello and Jack Nicholson in the intro of the movie, which is one of my favorite movie scenes ever. No one's going to give it to you. You got to take it. You got to take it. Do not believe in fairness, because fairness doesn't exist. The world isn't fair, so don't try to be fair to the world. Do not have mercy on the world. The world is not merciful to you. Don't act like it's going to, because it's not. Claim your birthright. Take what is yours. Again, no one is going to give it to you. You have to take it. Take it for yourself as a man. Do it righteously. Do it fair. Make sure to do that. But do not apologize. Do not apologize for doing what you need to do to make a better life for yourself. Do not apologize for improving yourself. Do not apologize for making more money. Do not apologize for getting in better shape. Do not apologize for seeking a woman who respects you. Do not apologize for any of those things. Do not do that, because it weakens you and it makes you less of a man to do that. And so, the thing you'll be surprised at how far you get just by trying. Because most guys just don't try, man. Most men do not achieve excellence in life for the simple fact that they just don't try. They get demoralized and they give up just impossibly quickly for them to see any progress at all. And they say, well, I tried. Like, one of my favorite questions to ask on sales calls is, what does try mean? Like, did you actually try? Or did you just buy a course and hope that the course would magically change your life for you? There are both fat people and skinny people, fat people and in shape people at the gym. What's the difference between the two of them? One actually works out, one doesn't. Do not get demoralized if you don't see progress. Do not give up quickly. Do not fall for the trap. I believe in you. I do. I wouldn't make this video if I didn't. If you're a man out there and you're feeling dejected, you're feeling like it's impossible, you're feeling like you can't win, you can. I believe in you, because I believed in myself and I was able to change my life. I'm not any different from you. I have a YouTube channel. That's it. Maybe you have a YouTube channel too, so we're not different at all. Do what you need to do. Average sucks. Go be excellent. Because excellence is the only option in today's world. Thank you all for watching. Own the day. Open your mind. I'll see you guys next week.